Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you would mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted. I appreciate that. I also love it when people leave comments, so if you have ideas for videos, some constructive criticism, or I just always like hearing how other people do things too, because it's interesting to find out different methods for the same thing. So tell me about those kinds of things. So I'm getting ready for another show. Summertime there's generally more shows than the wintertime, and sometimes you want to increase your inventory in kind of a short period of time, specifically with low-end items. And one of the big sellers I have at shows are just little plain silver bands made out of half-round wire. And so I'm going to show you some tricks to kind of ramping up production of those so you can have a whole variety of sizes of them. And I'm going to give you 3 different tips on how to increase the speed of making a bunch of those. So we're going to make a bunch of silver bands. I think I'm going to make 12 probably. Before we do that, I wanted to thank some groups of people. First off, my patrons over on Patreon. They're my kind of core group of supporters, and I think they're marvelous. I appreciate not only the financial support that they provide, but I really appreciate the kind of nice community that they've built over there. I love seeing what they make, and I love hearing them helping each other. It's great. So thank you for that. My other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 13,300. We're getting close to 13,400, I believe. And I wanted to thank them too. I really appreciate the kind comments that people leave sometimes. It's very nice, and sometimes actually moving when I hear that someone is getting some real quality out of stuff that I'm making. So if I'm helping people, that makes me feel good. So thank you for that. The other thing is I wanted to thank you for the super thanks and the buy me a coffees. Those things are really helping with some raw material costs that have gone sky high lately. So thanks for that. All right, let's get started on these 12 bands. This is one of my design idea books that you can find in my merch store. The more recent ones have some different charts on the back. This one is fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeter conversion tables, so I find that pretty useful sometimes. There's a couple of other different ones. The thing I like about these mostly though is that they have this little grid in the background, and if I'm sketching up stuff, it makes it so it's easier for me to kind of keep things proportional, because I'm not terribly good at freehand drawing, so I find it essential anymore. Today's thing, we're not going to do much drawing on here though, but what I did do is I went through all of my plain silver bands, and I figured out how many I had of which kind, and I had a whole bunch in the middle of the road here, but I was missing some spots in the surrounding areas. And it's been my experience that when people who have very small fingers or a little bit larger fingers find rings that fit, they almost always buy them. And so it's a good idea to have those filled out a little bit. So I'm going to make a few of these. I decided to make 2 4s, 2 4.5s, 1 5, 1 5.5, 2 6s, and then a 9, 9.5, a 10, and a 12. If I had a little bit more time, I'd probably do some more, but since I have a lot to do before the show, I'm going to crank out 12 and show you some tricks to making it faster. And I'll just tell you the tricks up front. First one is to make yourself templates for the lengths of the rings that you have, so you can just snip off pieces that are the right length and file the ends really quickly. The second one is you're going to turn this into kind of an assembly line. Rather than making each individual ring start to finish, it's much easier if you do it as a conveyor belt sort of process. And so we'll cut them all, we'll file them all, we'll bend them all, we'll solder them all, and then we'll polish them all. And the last thing I'm going to show you is some tricks to polishing these pretty quickly. So that's what we'll do. Let's start by measuring out some wires. Oh, and I said we're starting with 2 4s. Okay, and like I said, I'm using some 8 gauge half round. So let's start by filing the end flat. It's a flat starting point. You could saw these if you wanted to. I'm just going to snip them off. If I use my flush cutters on this side, get me pretty close there. just going to snip off this end. Okay, 2 4s, and then we need a 4 1/2. Here's my 4 1/2 template. Make 2 of these ones as well. One thing about these kind of bands is they're narrow enough to where if you have someone that finds one that is real close to fitting, if you bring yourself a mandrel and a plastic hammer to whatever show you're at, oftentimes you can stretch it a little bit for them and you make a sale where they might have walked away. So it's good to bring your ring mandrel and a hammer. And I usually bring some pliers and wire cutters as well, just in case, because every once in a while you need those. Okay, there's 2 of those. You could do this with pattern wires as well. And so I order some more pattern wire. I'll probably make a bunch more. They sell pretty well as well. I wouldn't call this part of silversmithing fun. It's okay, but sometimes you need to make a bunch of stuff so you have some inventory to drive some lower end sales. Not everybody can afford to drop, you know, $300 or something on a super fancy piece. And oftentimes people really want to buy something, they just can't afford any of your pieces. So if you have something lower price bracket, sometimes they'll take a souvenir with them. Another type of band that I sell pretty frequently are kind of a little bit wider hammered bands. Those are pretty popular, and you can sell them for a little bit more. And this one's going to be a 12. So, pretty quickly cut all those. Now I just need to make sure they all have nice flat sides on both sides, so I'm going to spend a moment doing that. If you're more comfortable using a miter vise jig to do this kind of stuff, feel free to do that. I've gotten to where I can file them pretty quick this way. When I first started doing this, it was really challenging to get a nice flat end on these things. You get better at it over time. Okay, now, as part of my assembly process, I'm going to do all of these into a U shape around the mandrel. When I solder these ones, I always just kind of bring the ends together. Make sure they're pushing tightly together. pretty good. One thing I found that shows is that people seem to like to dig through a bowl full of bands, especially if you mix up some pattern ones and some plain ones. They'll keep trying them on until they find one. Right. Just for reference, cutting, filing, and shaping these for soldering has taken me 22 minutes so far. So that's 12 rings in 22 minutes so far. And I tell you that because I'm probably going to edit the video so you don't have to watch the whole thing. I'm going to cut some kind of skinny strip pieces here. These I usually shape into little half-round shapes like that. Once they're sort of half-round like that, I can just drop them right over that solder joint. Of course, I need to flux them all first, so let's do that first, and then I'll add these little pieces of solder. If you've never been to my channel before, I use hard silver sheet solder primarily, and liquid flux. Dribble or spray on. You really just need to make sure you get the solder touching both sides of the gap. You could, I guess, use paste or whatever kind of solder you use. You could even pick solder it if you wanted to. I had a couple where I didn't heat evenly enough and it jumped to one side. So I'm just going to make sure I have plenty of solder on those ones by pick soldering. If you've never seen pick soldering, this is a super handy trick. It allows you to place solder really precisely in the amount that you want, easily and quickly. So I'll put a link up there if you're interested in that video. Okay, let's cool these off. Okay, next I'm going to go through and file off any excess solder on the inside. The solder joint is using my little flat jeweler's file. Now we should be able to shape these relatively quickly. There is two. I'm not going to make you watch me hammer all these into shape, so I'll be right back. So I got everything pretty much filed and shaped. I was going to do the inside of these rings with an abrasive white wheel. They start out as this knife edge size, and then when they get worn down, they work really well for getting rid of tool marks and stuff on the inside. Okay, and then once I do all those, then I'm going to go ahead and put them in the pickle for a while, and then I'll show you a couple of tips on how to polish quickly. So, see you in a bit. So for the final bit, I'm going to do a little bit of polishing real quick, show you how to do these pretty rapidly. When I'm doing these, I usually do the outside edges first by holding it this way on the wheel, like so you can see it like that, low down, and go really fast all the way around. Add a little more compound, go really fast all the way around, and then turn it this way and do it like this. But because these get so hot when you're doing it, and I'll be wearing gloves, and I know I'm going to catch some flack from that because some people think that's a bad idea, although in 30 years I've never had an issue with it. I polish aggressively enough to where things get very hot, and so what I like to do when I'm doing a whole bunch of rings is do the outside edges of each of them and then go back and do the front sides, the forward facing outer edge there. That way it gives them time to cool off between times. So I'm going to go ahead and do a few of these, and then I'll show you the final product when we're all done. So hopefully I can get a camera view where you can see what I'm doing. Ignore the mess in my shop. Okay, let's give these a polish. Okay, so now I'm going to flip them and start doing the outside edge. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is use some ZAM on this softer wheel right here, and I'm going to do basically the same thing except not spend near as much time, just to give it a high polish, and then we'll be done, and I'll take some pictures. Oh, I see that I have polishing hair. Alright, so here's my rings, 12 in all, and honestly, if you don't count the pickling and the polishing, probably about an hour to make those, you know. And then the other stuff takes a little bit longer, but overall, pretty quick afternoon to make, you know, put together what, $350 worth of rings. So I'll take some better pictures and put them at the end. Right, well, that was the speeding up your process for making simple bands video. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave, and check out a few other videos I have. I have over 350 now, and I'm producing 3 videos per week, so it's a good channel to subscribe to if you haven't done that yet. But check out some other videos. There's content that is appropriate for beginners, people who are kind of in the middle, and there's also advanced content too, so you're almost certain to find something that'll be helpful or fun to do. So check those out, subscribe to my channel, and then hit the video description down below. There's lots of relevant links in there. There's the Buy Me a Coffee link, if you want to find out about the Patreon community and how to become a part of that. There's a link to my ebook, which I talked about earlier, and my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea books, as well as a few other important links. So check those out, and then come back and see us again. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.